Dr. Umar, man. Happy to have you back on the platform, my guy.
Peace and Pan-Africanism. Glad to be back.
Hey, man, it's an honor to have you back, man. It's an honor to have you back, man. The last interview we did, the people loved it, man.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that.
Yes, indeed. So with that being said, man, I want to get right into it, man. There's a lot going on, man, that I want to get your opinion on, and the people want to hear your take on, man. The first thing I do want to tap into, man, I want to get your opinion on it. Caitlyn Clark, how you feel about everything that's going on with her right now?
The situation involving Caitlyn Clark, I believe, is unfortunate for her because she has been relatively modest and quiet since entering the WNBA. I think the problem is that the white power structure and the WNBA has an agenda to make Caitlyn Clark the athletic face of the league. Now, they can make her the marketing face of the league, but it's going to be difficult to make her the athletic face of the league because she is not to the WNBA what LeBron James was to the NBA. She's not a Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic. She's not a Larry Bird, if you will. And so the problem, as I see it, is the WNBA wants to pass off responsibility for Caitlyn Clark not being the instant athletic phenom they want her to be. They want to pass off that responsibility onto the Black women of the WNBA. And it appears that they're trying to push a narrative that says Caitlyn Clark isn't able to maximize her talents on the court because she's being bullied by these much larger Black women. And that simply isn't true. Basketball is a competitive sport. You play to compete. That is the nature of athletics. So shaming and blaming Black women for competing against Caitlyn Clark when you all took it upon yourselves to exaggerate her skill set simply isn't fair. You saw what happened the other day. There was a game that the Indiana Fever had with Chicago Sky. And Kennedy Carter, I believe is the sister's name, she had shoulder checked Caitlyn Clark to the floor. The referees called a common foul, and the WNBA later upgraded the common foul to a flagrant foul. Well, everybody's up in arms calling Kennedy a bully. She's jealous. The Black women of the WNBA are jealous of Caitlyn Clark because she's getting all of this attention. Wait a minute. Time out. Why didn't anyone talk about the play just before the one that led to the shoulder check? Caitlyn Clark went over the head of one of Kennedy Carter's teammates, hit her in the head. The foul was not called. And then on the way back up the court, she proceeded to trash talk the opposing team. So, you know, in any sport, when you foul someone and it's not called, and then you have the audacity to trash talk the other team on your way up the court, paybacks are due. That's in the WNBA, that's in the NBA, that's in college, that's in Little League. What Kennedy Carter did happens all the time in the WNBA, the NBA, college, and other places. But because she's supposed to be the Cinderella of the WNBA, white America took issue with it, and nobody focused on the fact that she started the whole thing. And what really perturbed me was when I went to the sports commentators on television, I hear Charles Snow Bunny Barkley calling the Black women of the WNBA jealous. He said they're jealous of Caitlyn Clark. And then Snow Bunny Shannon Sharpe, he chimes in with the same false criticism, saying that they're jealous of Caitlyn Clark. Nobody's jealous of Caitlyn Clark. No disrespect to her, because I don't think she deserves this, because she hasn't said or done anything that would warrant anybody intentionally pursuing her beyond the fact that a lot of much better players are being overlooked in deference to the white rookie, which I could understandably recognize if you got players who've been in this league for 1 year or more years who are way better than Caitlyn Clark, and they have been overlooked to be the athletic face of the WNBA, and everybody knows why. Because she's the new white girl who they want to be the ambassador for the sport. The problem is she isn't that good enough. And then Matt Barnes, he chimes in again with Snow Bunny Shannon Sharpe, and they both say that Caitlyn Clark's teammates are not protecting her. Protect her from what, Matt Barnes? Protect her from what, Snow Bunny Shannon Sharpe? She started the altercation. She hit the girl in the head. I do believe it was inadvertent. It was a basketball play. I don't think it was a dirty, cheap shot, but you still hit her and the ref didn't call it. And then you trash talked her and you got what you were looking for. So why are you calling on Aaliyah Boston, Caitlyn Clark's teammate, to be the plantation mammy of the WNBA and play bodyguard for Caitlyn Clark? Time out. Aaliyah Boston is a National Player of the Year. Aaliyah Boston is a Olympic gold medalist. Aaliyah Boston is an NCAA champion. Aaliyah Boston has her own status and prestige in the WNBA. She's just as accomplished, if not more so, than Caitlyn Clark. So why would you reduce her to being the on-court mammy whose new job now is not to play basketball, but to defend the privileged white girl, Caitlyn Clark, from other black female athletes? It's not fair. And then we come to LeBron Buck Dancing James, LBJ. And then LeBron James gets on the internet and he basically tells the black women of the WNBA to chill out and relax. Caitlyn Clark is the reason you guys are getting all this new attention. She's the reason that you guys are making more money. She's the reason attendance has picked up. She's the reason you guys are getting chartered flights. Well, guess what? I disagree with you, LeBron James. I disagree with you. And let me tell you why. Have you noticed, LeBron James, Charles Barkley, Shannon Sharpe, that because of Angel Reese, the Chicago Sky tickets have quadrupled in sale, that the stadium has quadrupled in attendance? Why is nobody talking about the Angel Reese effect? So you're telling me people are going to watch Angel Reese? Although Caitlyn Clark does not play in Chicago, people are going to watch Angel Reese because Caitlyn Clark is in the WNBA? That's not true. They're watching Angel Reese for Angel Reese. Last time I checked, Angel Reese beat the University of Iowa for the national championship 2 years ago. And the reason why Angel Reese is being demonized by the WNBA, white media, white society, and the coonocracy of the WNBA is because they did not forgive her for spoiling Caitlyn Clark's season 2 years ago. In the 2022-2023 national semifinals of the women's NCAA tournament, Caitlyn Clark in Iowa went against North Philadelphia's Dawn Staley and the undefeated Lady Gamecocks of the University of South Carolina. They were undefeated, and the referees robbed Dawn Staley and the Lady Gamecocks. It was a highway robbery. If you breathed on Caitlyn Clark, they called a foul. But when the Lady Gamecocks were being beat up, Aaliyah Boston and company, no fouls were called. They were robbed. So after the white Snow Bunny referees robbed South Carolina in the national semifinals game, America thought that Caitlyn Clark would cruise to the national championship. But guess who had something to say about that? Angel Reese and the LSU Tigers. And Angel Reese knocked off Caitlyn Clark to win an NCAA National Women's Championship, and America has not forgiven her for that. Let's go to this year. So once again, Iowa sees Dawn Staley's Lady Gamecocks. Aaliyah Boston is in the WNBA. The referees couldn't cheat them this time. Now, they did beat Angel Reese in the semifinals. So Caitlyn Clark and Iowa did get some of their revenge, but they didn't get all of their revenge because when Angel Reese beat you, she won a ring. When you beat her, you didn't win a ring. And then you lost to Dawn Staley, a coach, by the way, who only lost 3 games in 3 seasons. Undefeated, unprecedented season. Dawn Staley is going to go down in history as the greatest women's basketball coach of all time. But guess what? She's not getting no attention at all. All the attention is going on the loser, Caitlyn Clark. When have you ever seen the losing team get more attention than the woman team? And to add insult to injury, I can't believe that Gayle King, Oprah Winfrey's running mate, had the audacity to interview Coach Dawn Staley in the aftermath of the University of South Carolina's national championship. And she asks Dawn Staley, this is a black woman, elder, interviewing another black woman, youth. And she says, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind? Because we were all rooting for Caitlyn Clark in the University of Iowa. Time out, Gayle. Time out, Gayle. Who was rooting for Caitlyn Clark in the University of Iowa? Because I wasn't. I was rooting for my North Philadelphia sister coach, Dawn Staley, and the Lady Gamecocks. And I watched them more than men's basketball. Caitlyn Clark isn't the only reason people are tuning into women's college basketball and the WNBA. It's because of Dawn Staley, the Lady Gamecocks, Angel Reese, the improvement in ladies competition over the past couple years. And yes, Caitlyn Clark, I will not deny her impact, but to put it in a vacuum, Stephen A. Smith, to put it in a vacuum, Matt Barnes, to put it in a vacuum, LaShawn McCoy, to put it in a vacuum, Shannon Sharpe, and say that all of this new attention is due to the white female rookie is not fair to the players who are already there. This started 2 years ago when Angel Reese beat Iowa. You know as well as I know, you can't have a protagonist without an antagonist. Why do you go to movies to watch Batman? You go to movies to watch Batman because you know there's going to be a Riddler. Why do you go to a boxing match? Because you know if Gervonta Davis is on this side of the ring, somebody else is going to be on this side of the ring. The protagonist and the antagonist make the story. Unfortunately, white America has made Angel Reese into the antagonist. So be it. The point that I'm making is Caitlyn Clark cannot exist without an Angel Reese. If Angel Reese never beats Caitlyn Clark for the NCAA Women's Championship 2 years ago, we're not even having this conversation. That rivalry made this a situation. And the fact that they both transitioned to the WNBA at the same time made it even more of a rivalry. And the fact that Caitlyn Clark joined a team that has Aaliyah Boston, former national champion, gold medalist, national player of the year. So her former nemesis is now her teammate, and they're going up against Angel Reese. That even makes for a better story. I'm not denying Caitlyn Clark her greatness. I'm saying she's not doing it alone. She's not doing it alone. Angel Reese's impact is almost as strong. There's more white women in America. So yeah, Caitlyn Clark is going to sell more tickets. She's going to sell more paraphernalia because there's more white women in America than black women. That goes without saying. But to try to reduce Angel Reese to being a hater and jealous of this girl is not fair. Last time I checked, Caitlyn Clark does not lead the NBA, the WNBA in any category. She doesn't lead the WNBA in any category. Her team has the second worst record in the entire WNBA. Who is jealous of that? Who is jealous of that? And then Shannon Sharpe, along with Matt Barnes and everybody else, Shady McCoy and the rest of these Negropeans, they are up there talking about how she's being unfairly targeted. Guess what? Angel Reese has been just as targeted on the basketball court as Caitlyn Clark. Did you see the game a couple days ago where the player from the opposing team picked Angel Reese up and slammed her to the ground, and she ended up getting ejected? Why didn't Shannon Sharpe talk about the bullying of Angel Reese? Why didn't Charles Snow Bunny Barkley talk about the bullying of Angel Reese? Why didn't LeBron James and Shady McCoy and Stephen A. Smith talk about the bullying of Angel Reese? Why are we only talking about the alleged bullying of a Caitlyn Clark? I think it's racist. I think it's unfair. Do you know what just happened last night or the night before? Asia, I forget Asia's last name. She's also a former NCAA women's champion. She's also a former National Player of the Year. She just made WNBA history last night or the night before. She plays for the Las Vegas Aces. She's also a Dawn Staley product. She just scored 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. She's the first player in WNBA history to score 35 points, grab 10 rebounds, dish out 5 assists. It's never been done in a single game. She plays for the Las Vegas Aces. Guess what? Every home game has been sold out so far this year in Las Vegas. Is Caitlyn Clark responsible for that? Is Caitlyn Clark responsible for the sold out games in Chicago? What are we doing here? I can't believe Stephen A. Smith, Snow Bunny Barkley, Snow Bunny Sharpe, Matt Barnes, LaShawn McCoy, LeBron James. I can't believe they're going out of their way to help the NBA and white America paint this false narrative that Caitlyn Clark is just so good and everybody else is jealous of her. That's not true. You're putting her on a pedestal and she's not good enough at this time to live up to the hype or to the expectation. All of those women, including Caitlyn Clark, are responsible for the new hype in the WNBA. And if I may, LeBron James, who I love and respect, Black wife, Black children, took his friends from childhood, had them trained, educated, and they became part of his economic empire. Nothing but respect for LeBron James with regard to that. But how is it that LeBron James can come to the aid of Caitlyn Clark and protect her from her Black competition in the WNBA? And how is it that LeBron James could stand in solidarity with Israel against its occupation and genocide of Palestinians? Over 100,000 Palestinians have been murdered as a result of this war. But LeBron James and Maverick Carter came out publicly in defense and in solidarity with Israel. So you came to the defense of a white country. You came to the defense of a white girl. But LeBron James, can I ask you a question? Where was all this energy 2 Junes ago in 2022? Where was all this energy, LeBron James, 2 years ago, when a Black man from your hometown of Akron, Ohio, by the name of Jalen Walker, was shot more than 90 times by the police of Akron? He was unarmed. He fled on foot. They caught up with him, executed him. His body was riddled with nearly 90 bullets. And do you know what LeBron James had to say about it? I have to pray for my city. That's all he could offer in defense of Jalen Walker, the Black community of Akron, Ohio, and Jalen Walker's family. I have to pray. But why did you pray for Israel and Palestine? Why did you pray for Caitlyn Clark? You stood up in defense of Israel. You stood up in defense of Caitlyn Clark, but LeBron James couldn't stand up in defense of Jalen Walker, who was executed with 90 bullets by the police in Akron, Ohio. Here's what we need to understand. The traditional Black bourgeoisie no longer exists. They no longer have in America academically trained Negroes who can influence the political and social behavior of Black America. You don't have the Jesse Jacksons with the influence they used to have anymore. You don't have the Al Sharptons with the influence they used to have anymore. You don't have the Andrew Youngs with the influence that they used to have anymore. You don't have the Congressional Black Caucus with the influence they used to have anymore. So if you no longer have an academically trained, socially elite Black bourgeoisie, who do you replace them with? You know what they're doing? They're replacing them with Black celebrities. LeBron James is now a spokesperson for Black America. Charles Snow Bunny Barkley is a spokesperson for Black America. Shannon Snow Bunny Sharpe is a spokesperson for Black America. Negroes who have no vested interest in the best interest of African people are now the spokespersons, and they are not doing a good job at all. To see these Black men throw Angel Reese under the bus. And let me not forget Emmanuel Ocho, my Nigerian brother who has a tendency to coon out every once in a while. Emmanuel Ocho, after Angel Reese lost to Caitlyn Clark in the national semifinals a few months ago, he gets on television and he basically shames Angel Reese for the fact that she's receiving death threats. How do you shame a 22-year-old child? My daughter is 22 years old. How do you shame a 22-year-old girl who's crying in the post game interview because she lost and under the pressure of being vilified by white America, under the pressure of racial remarks and slanderous messages being sent her way every day, all day? She cries as a child does. And what does Emmanuel Ocho do? He gets on TV, shames and blames Angel Reese, and basically tells her, if you want to play the villain, then you have to suck it up when it comes your way. Look at this now. Angel Reese is being treated like an animal by these black male sportscasters. She's being treated like an animal by these black male sportscasters, while at the same time they upholding the privileged white girl, Caitlyn Clark. It ain't nothing but good old-fashioned racism. And I stand in solidarity with Angel Reese. I stand in solidarity with Kennedy Carter. I stand in solidarity with Asia Wilson and Aaliyah Boston and all those beautiful black women who are helping to make the WNBA what it is right now. Asia Wilson is probably going to end up being the greatest female basketball player of all time. That 35, 10, and 5, she out there running that thing. Sold out games every night. Why isn't Stephen A. Smith talking about the Asia Wilson effect? And Gayle King, don't you ever in your life break breath to ask a black coach what were they thinking when they went up against a white student in a national championship game. Gayle King, you owe Coach Dawn Staley an apology. How dare you tell a black woman that you was rooting against her for a white team and a white player at a white university that has less than 3% black children on campus? What the hell do you mean we were all rooting for Caitlyn Clark in the University of Iowa?
Hey man, everything you just said, man, was spot on. Your take was spot on. And Asia Wilson, I don't know if you know, but she is the face of the WNBA. She's the best player in the WNBA right now. And she don't get
It's
no
not
love
even
at all, yo.
close. It's not even close. Asia Wilson is the best player in the WNBA. It's not even close. Sold out arenas, just broke a record. I don't hear Stephen A. Smith. I don't hear Snow Bunny Sharpe, Snow Bunny Barkley. I don't hear Emmanuel Ocho. I don't hear LeBron James singing her praises, but they singing the praises for Caitlyn Clark. And this speaks to a larger issue, though, of black celebrity males. I want to introduce a term to you that I call political effeminization. And I want to explain what that is. Political effeminization is not sexual effeminization. It's not social effeminization. It has nothing to do with your ability to engage in stereotypical, traditional, social, aggressive male forms of behavior. Not at all. Political effeminization speaks to the need for black men to politically stand up against the white power structure and defend their women, their children, their elders, and their community. When I see LeBron James cape out for Caitlyn Clark, like she's the only reason the WNBA is doing what it's doing. When I see Stephen A. Smith and Matt Barnes cape out for Caitlyn Clark, like she's the only reason that the WNBA is doing what she's doing. When I see Snow Bunny Barkley and Snow Bunny Shay Shay cape out for her like this, and ignore Asia Wilson and her effect. Ignore Angel Reese and her effect. Ignore Aaliyah Boston and her effect. To me, that is a form of political effeminization. You don't have the courage. You don't have the courage. You don't have the masculinity to stand up to systemic racism in the media, in the government, in the society, in the criminal justice system, in the school system. They don't have the courage. They are not men of courage when it comes to standing up and defending the integrity and self-respect of black women. Political effeminization.
Man, that's some hard truth right there, man. But I want to get your overall take. Shannon Sharpe. How you feel about Shannon Sharpe?
4 years ago, with regard to Shannon Sharpe, first of all, because I don't want to be contradictory in delivering my answer, I don't think Shannon Sharpe is a bad person. His energy, he seems like the type of person who will help somebody. 4 years ago, during the George Floyd protest for justice, Shannon Sharpe used his platform with Skip Bayless to repeatedly and consistently expose the injustices against African people. I was a Shannon Sharpe supporter. And then one day, somebody sent me a message and they said, Dr. Umar, you are posting Shannon Sharpe on your social media feed. Are you aware he does not date black women? I said, no way. There's no way that this man, who is really doing an excellent job, he was the most outspoken black voice of the media, sports media or mainstream media during the George Floyd protests. Shannon Sharpe did a damn good job of exposing black injustice to the world at that time. When I heard that he did not date black women, my brother, my mouth dropped wide open. So I had to go and do some research, and I came across some clips of him discussing the fact that he doesn't date women of his own race. It took the wind completely out of my sail, because you cannot claim to love black people and sleep with a non-black woman. It is an absolute contradiction. I don't think he's a bad person, but without question, he is a Negropean. Without question, he is a gatekeeper. And his behavior in dealing with this Caitlyn Clark, Angel Reese WNBA situation underscores the fact that Shannon Sharpe is more Negropean than he is loyal to the African community. I don't think he's a bad guy. There's always room for change. I'm hoping Shannon Sharpe comes around and be the black man that black women need him to be. But as of right now, I would have to align him with the coonocracy.
How you feel about Stephen A?
The jury for me, the jury is still out on Stephen A. Smith for me. Because although Stephen A. Smith often aligns himself with the talking points of white America, although Stephen A. Smith has on more than one occasion earned my rebuke in the way in which he has attacked black athletes, I have seen Stephen A. Smith stand up for black people. For example, when former NBA MVP Steve Nash was given the job as the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, Stephen A. Smith was one of the first people to refer to the fact that there were qualified black coaches who had not been given a chance to coach, and had Steve Nash been black, he doubt very seriously that he would have been chosen as the coach for the triple threat of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. So at times, I do see a little bit of race pride ooze out of the mouth of Stephen A. Smith. So I'm not going to put him quite in the same box as I would put the Shannons. And I'm not going to put Shannon in the same box as I'm going to put Barkley. But at the same time, Stephen A. Smith also needs to do a little bit more as far as being consistent in his narrative about where he stands when it comes to the best interests of black people. But I have not thrown him out yet. I'm going to be a little bit patient. I'm not going to give him too much room. Okay, but I am going to be a little patient with Stephen A. because I have seen him stand up for the race. I really haven't seen Shannon Sharpe stand up for the race since George Floyd 4 years ago. So Shannon Sharpe has a lot more to show me. But Stephen A. Smith, I have a little bit more faith in him that he'll finally come around.
What you think about the back and forth he had with the female on ESPN, Monica McNutt?
I think the situation with Stephen A. Smith and Monica McNutt, who I think is a very beautiful sister, by the way. She's feminine, well-spoken, physically gorgeous, and I haven't seen her coon out yet. I have not seen Monica McNutt coon out yet. I'm going to tell you somebody else who hasn't cooned out yet, and I want to come back to your question, and that is Kenny Smith. Because as you know, Kenny Smith, SHAQ, and Barkley, they all make up that inside NBA crew. And I have to give Kenny Smith his respect and his props, because even though he's sitting next to two of the biggest Negro peons in American sports history, in Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Snow Bunny Barkley, I have never seen Kenny Smith go against his race. And he's been around for a minute. So salute to Kenny Smith. And to my knowledge, I do believe he has a black wife. So salute to Kenny Smith. And with Monica McNutt, she's new on the scene. But so far, I am more impressed with her than some of the other sisters who are sportscasters who have a tendency to coon out and reinforce the talking points of the white hosts. But to your point, Stephen A. Smith has an ego, as we all do. And I think sometimes Stephen A. Smith can let his ego get the best of him. I think this could have possibly been one of those times. Him reminding the world that he gave Monica McNutt an opportunity, I can see that both ways. I can see that as Stephen A. Smith doing a little bit of damage control, reminding people, this woman is not my enemy. I gave her an opportunity. I can respect that. But then on the other side of that, Stephen A. has to be careful, because you don't want it to look like, because I gave you an opportunity, you are beholden to let me say whatever I want to say when we have a conversation. And I'm not saying that's what he's trying to do. I'm saying he has to be careful to make sure he's not doing that, or is not perceived as having done that. Because if you're giving her a genuine opportunity because you care about this sister, then you should have no problem at all with her debating you or disagreeing with you on live television. And I have to give Stephen A. his props, because not only did he give Monica McNutt an opportunity, he gave Shannon Sharpe an opportunity after he fell out with Skip Bayless. And these are some of the reasons why I'm not going to do away with Stephen A. Smith yet, because he's shown me a little bit more racial solidarity with the community than a lot of the other ones. And that's why I'm being patient with him.
One last thing before we get off of this topic. SHAQ. You don't rock with SHAQ?
Shaquille O'Neal kind of reminds me of Shannon Sharpe. And what I mean by that, nice personality. Shaq does all kinds of nice things for the children. Shaq is a good guy, like Shannon. I think they're good people. But because of how they were raised, because of who influenced them in their life, because of the Caucasians who manipulated them through their career, Shaq is 10 toes down with the white power structure. 10 toes down. I remember I read a few years ago that Shaq put out a financial reward for a police officer, I believe, who was shot. And don't get me wrong, I don't condone violence against anybody, police or civilians. But Shaquille O'Neal, if you're going to put out reward money for a police officer who was shot, where's the reward money, okay, for information that could lead to a conviction for some of these police who have murdered our loved ones and have walked free? How is it that you can put out money to protect the life of a police officer, Shaquille O'Neal, but you ain't put out no money to protect the life of Black people? So once again, you have this Shannon Sharpe, Shaquille O'Neal situation where dark-skinned Black men are going out of their way to align themselves with the white power structure. And I gotta say this, in all honesty, so far in 2024, dark-skinned Black men are guilty of cooning more than any other Black men. I don't want to hear nothing about the light-skinned brothers for the rest of the year. I don't want to hear nothing about the mixed race brothers for the rest of the year. So far in 2024, dark-skinned brothers, my complexion and darker, have been doing more cooning and participating in more bunny hopping and more racial betrayal than all the light-skinned men in Black America put together. Leave the light-skinned brothers alone. Leave the mixed race brothers alone. Dark-skinned men are cooning out of control so far in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, as I think about it, man, they have been doing the most cooning, man. So, yeah, you may be right about that, man. But I gotta ask you, what was your reaction when you seen the video of Diddy attacking Cassie?
Okay. The trials and tribulations of Sean Puffy Combs and the Cassie debacle. Here's what I'm going to say. I want to respond to your question on the Diddy situation morally and ethically, and then I want to respond to it legally and procedurally because I believe they're separate. American law isn't based on justice. We know that. American law isn't based on righteousness. We know that. American law isn't based on morality or ethics. We know that. So I have to respond with the moral side as a black man watching a black man not only put his hands, but also put his feet on a woman. And I don't care what color the woman is. No woman should ever be harmed by a man. I don't care if she's red, black, blue, purple, or brown. No woman should ever be assaulted by a man. And I can't say that enough. So from a moral perspective, from a black man perspective, what Sean Puffy Combs did by not only putting hands, but also putting feet on that woman and then dragging her down the hallway is unacceptable. It is reprehensible. It was absolutely disgusting, grotesque, and to some degree, unforgivable. I'm 10 toes down with the black community on the fact that what Puffy did was without question conduct unbecoming a man, let alone a role model. You have no argument from me on that point. I want to be clear on that. Wrong, wrong, wrong. But now I have to turn the mirror on Black America. And I have to ask Black America a very serious question. Are you really against domestic violence? Or are you simply glorying in the downfall of a very successful rap mogul and you're using the domestic violence incident as a justification to celebrate his fall from grace? And the reason I have to ask this question, Art, is because 40% of Black women in America are domestically abused every day in this country. 40%. That's almost half the Black women in this country are victimized by their lovers, their husbands, their boyfriends, their baby dads, their fiancés. So if Black men are appalled by Puff Daddy's behavior, if Black women are appalled by Puff Daddy's behavior, why do we have so much domestic violence in the Black community? Let me ask it another way. You want Puffy to suffer for what he did, and he should. But did you call the police when you heard your son beating his girlfriend up upstairs? Did you call the police when you heard your nephew choking out his girlfriend last week? Did you call the police when you heard your grandfather smacking up your grandmother in the back room? See, I cannot condone hypocrisy, Art. I can't condone hypocrisy. If we are this adamant against domestic abuse, why is it so prevalent in the Black community? Do you know that a Black woman is 3 times as likely to be murdered by her romantic partner than a white woman? 3 times as likely. And I don't have to tell you, you watch the news. This whole year has been a killing spree against Black women. I've seen more Black women murdered this year by their baby dad, by their estranged husband, by the fiance, more this year than I've seen in quite some time. You have white men who are taking Black women on dates, beheading them, chopping their body parts up and distributing them all over the town, as was just happened in Ohio a few weeks ago and elsewhere in this country. It has been nothing but a homicide year for Black women. Femicide in our community is a major problem. So if we are that in agreement against the abuse of Black women, why is it so prevalent? Black women, when you find out your son, your nephew, your uncle, your brother, your father is beating on their women, have you called the police? Black men, when you find out your son, your nephew, your father, your uncle, your brother is beating up on Black women, do you chin check him? Do you grab him by the collar? Do you pull him out the house and give his ass a good stomping that he deserves? No, you don't. You know what we do, Art? We turn the other cheek. You got Black women being beat up in Black churches. You got Black women being abused in the masjid, Jehovah Witnesses, all organizations. You can't name me an organization, Black conscious movement, mainstream Black America, Black church, Black masjid, fraternity, sorority, Masonics, I don't care what it is. Black women are being beat. Black pastors are beating up their women, and everybody's turning a blind eye. So to me, although Puffy needs to be held accountable, I would have to charge Black America with being guilty of hypocrisy, because too many Black women are being beat down and murdered every day in this country. And I do not see the outcry for them like I see the outcry for Cassie. And let me go a step further. Let me go another point. Because we're dealing with the hypocrisy of this. I am not defending Sean Puffy Combs. I can sit here and tell you in the presence of my ancestors and in the presence of the Almighty, brother, I have never put my hands on a woman in my life. There's not a woman on this earth who can say Dr. Umar physically abused me. I could never do that, because I've seen domestic violence in my own home growing up as a child. I know what it is, brother. And because of that, I promised myself I would never put my hands on a woman. But here's another question I got for Black America. If you care about domestic abuse so much, why were you absolutely quiet when the New York Appeals Court overturned Harvey Weinstein's conviction? Harvey Weinstein, who was accused of sexually abusing more than 100 women, plenty of them were Black, and guess what? His conviction just got overturned. I ain't heard a word from nobody on YouTube. And Harvey Weinstein's attorney just said that because the New York case was overturned, Harvey Weinstein is still in jail for the Los Angeles conviction. But his attorney said circumstances involved in the New York case that was just overturned could lead to his Los Angeles conviction also being overturned, which means Harvey Weinstein could be set free someday soon. Why isn't Black America talking about that? Are we really against domestic violence, or are we just celebrating the downfall of a great Black mogul? Let me go another step. The Roman Catholic Church. Are you aware that the Roman Catholic Church has admitted to at least 11,000 separate sexual assaults of Roman Catholic priests upon innocent children? Let me say that again. 11,000 separate sexual assaults against innocent children by the priests of the Roman Catholic Church. At least 4,300 priests are involved. 11,000 acts of child sex abuse in the Roman Catholic Church. At least 4,300 priests are involved. If we are against domestic violence, Art, can I ask you a question? Why do we still have 3 million American African Catholics in the United States of America? How in the hell do you go back to Catholic Mass, Black people who claim to be against domestic violence? How do you go back to Catholic Mass? How are you still a member of the Roman Catholic Church when over 11,000 separate incidents of child sex assault involving over 4,300 Roman Catholic priests, you claim you don't support domestic violence, and you still belong to a church that admits to over 11,000 acts of it? Will the real hypocrite please stand up? If we against it, why so many women being beat? Why are so many women being killed by their lovers? Why aren't their girlfriends saying anything? Their cousins aren't saying anything. Their next door neighbors aren't saying anything. Women in the congregation, men in the congregation aren't saying anything. If we hate domestic violence, why are Black women the greatest victims of it? Or do we only care when it's a light-skinned celebrity involved? And let me go a step further, Art. I got to go a step further. I gave you my moral answer. I want to switch to the legal. Cassie settled with Puff for 30 mils, which she took back to her white husband. If I were speaking with Cassie, and I want to be clear, I would never blame her for what she went through. I would never blame her for what she went through. I know what survivor's remorse is all about. I am in the field of psychology. I would never blame her or try to scapegoat her for what Puffy did to her. I would never do that to any woman. But if I were talking to Cassie, I would ask her this though. Sister Cassie. And I don't know if she identifies as black or mixed race or whatever bag she in. She definitely bunny hopping right now. But this is what I would ask her. Was this about justice or was this about money? Because when you were with Puffy, because he's Sean Puffy Combs, you could have went into any police precinct. You could have picked up the phone and called any criminal defense lawyer in America and told them, I'm Sean Puffy Combs' lover, and I am afraid of my life because he is abusing me on a regular basis. Do you know how many lawyers would have jumped at an opportunity to not only put him behind bars, but also get her a payday? I'm talking about when it was happening. When it was happening. She could have got justice immediately when it was happening. So if I was talking to my sister Cassie, assuming she claims to be black, if I was talking to my sister Cassie, is this about justice or is this about money? Because if this is about justice and protecting sisters from domestic abuse, why didn't you run him to the police when you were still with Puffy? Why are we just now hearing about this 8 years later or however many years after the fact? Why did you wait until you married a white man and then came back to get the black man's money? Was this about money or was this about justice? I'm not shaming her. I'm simply saying I'm confused. Because if this is about women's rights and protecting women, why didn't you run his ass into the police back when this was happening? It's not like he a brother who just got out of prison, Art. It's not like he's a homeless boyfriend from high school. It's not like he's a brother working a regular 9 to 5. This is Sean Puffy Combs, the face of black music, who was a mogul before Jay-Z became a mogul. She would have had no problem embarrassing him, holding him accountable, getting him charged or convicted, but she waited it out. She waited it out. And after she finally left that situation, thank God she did, moved on, got her white husband, she comes back to get 30 million. Is it justice or is it extortion? Is it justice or is it extortion? Is it justice or is it extortion? And here's the point I want to make, and I'll close on this point. I'm concerned, Art, because I'm seeing the white power structure go after wealthy black men with old, outdated accusations of domestic abuse and sex abuse. Don't get me wrong. I don't trivialize sexual violence against women. I don't trivialize domestic violence against women because our women suffer from it the most. I don't trivialize it. I don't make light of it. But to have these women come back 8 years later, 10 years later, Bill Cosby, 40 years later, for financial demands for money, or try to get somebody incarcerated decades after, years after the offense, when you chose to do nothing at the time with celebrity men. I'm not talking everyday men, Art. We're talking celebrity men who have a lot to lose. I just can't sit by as a black man and say I'm okay with the legal system letting these women pop up whenever they feel like it 5, 10, 30, 40 years later and say he did this to me and I want money even if he can't get jail time. If you really cared about justice, you would have brought suit against that black man before the statute of limitations expired.
The apology video. What did you think about the apology video? And do you think the apology video was a good idea?
I do not think the apology video was a good idea because, number one, nobody's going to believe it, even if it's sincere. I have trouble believing it if it was sincere because of what he has to lose. Why wouldn't you do an apology video? Isn't that the first thing your lawyer or publicist makes you do when you are found at fault of breaking the law? do an apology video. So I think it was bad because nobody's going to believe him. And if nobody believes you, that means they think that you're faking your apology, which, in my opinion, further diminishes and disgraces your reputation. I don't think I would have done it. And if I would have done it, first of all, I would have never been guilty of that. So let me be clear. I would have never been guilty of that to have to do it. But in Puffy's case, if you're going to do a video, Puff, and apologize, I believe it should have been personally sent to Cassie. Even if you're going to do a separate one for the public, because she's the person you offended against. You didn't offend me. You offended against her first, in the community second. So I can understand a video for the community because she belongs to us. But your first video should have been a personal one to her. That's number one. And only after she received the video, I would have let some time go by when this entire situation is an afterthought in everyone's mind. It's been rectified and settled. Then I would probably come out with an apology video. But to come out with an apology video when there's so many questions still unanswered, you have new accusations being made against you every day. So does this mean you're going to be doing an apology video for every woman that comes forward or every video that surfaces before the media? I think it was premature. I'm not against him doing it, but I do not think the timing was right at all.
What I want to ask you is this, right? Is there any possible way that Diddy can bounce back from this, from your point of view?
Yes, he can. Should he? Probably not. Can he? Yes, he can. Because we have the Christian church in Black America. And Black America are suckers for a good redemption story. How many murderers went to the church, got baptized, started their own church, and began a new life? How many career criminals went to the church, got baptized, and started a new life? If Puffy is interested in the church, he could, without question, redeem himself through the church, because the Black church forgives everybody for anything. Let me say that again. The Black church forgives everybody for anything. If Puff Daddy goes and gets baptized, apologizes for all he's ever done, whether he's sincere or insincere, Black Christian America will give him another chance. He can come back, because people who are guilty of things that are almost as grotesque have also come back before him. Yes, he can come back if he baptizes himself, joins the church, and professes to be saved by Christ.
Speaking of the church, right? How you feel about TD Jakes? Because what caught my attention about him is, it's a lot of people that have mixed feelings about him. You have some people that's a fan of his, and you have some people that feel like he's a fraud. But how you feel about him?
I'm not going to call him a fraud. I think I'm not a fan of TD Jakes because I don't see TD Jakes doing enough to help Black America. That's really my only gripe with the man. As far as him being at the Puff Daddy freak-offs, clearly that is behavior unbecoming of a pastor. Clearly that is behavior unbecoming of a pastor. But he's not the first to do something like that. And he's not the last to do something like that. I mean, let's be honest. Every day we have pastors, Black and white, being exposed in this country, sleeping with minors, molesting kids, cheating on their wives, stealing from the church. It's no longer a shock to find out a pastor has been outed as being a closet homosexual or an abuser of children. It's no longer a shock. And that's sad. But my issue with TD Jakes is he makes too much money. His church brings in too much revenue for them not to have a school for our children, for them not to have a hospital for our children, for them not to have a bank for our families, for them not to have a supermarket to provide our people with good food. TD Jakes' church brings in too much revenue for him not to be a factor in the resurrection of Black America. That's my issue with TD Jakes.
Yeah, I mean, if he's making that kind of money, he should be doing more, so. I hear you on that, man. But I want to ask you, from your point of view, what do you think is going to happen to Diddy?
I don't know the answer to that, but here's what I do know. Sean Puffy Combs, from the white power structure perspective, is guilty of committing celebrity crimes while no longer being relevant to the white power structure. One thing we know about racism and black celebrities, when you are no longer a benefit to us, we no longer provide you with the protection you need to operate above the law. That went for Michael Jackson, that went for Prince, that went for Whitney Houston, that went for, it goes for all the celebrities, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, now Sean Puffy Combs. This is why when LeBron James retires from the NBA, he's going to have to be more careful. You have to be more careful when you're no longer the man. You have to be more careful when you're no longer on top, because when you are no longer of earning potential for us, when we can no longer flip a quick dollar off you, we send you back to the plantation to be with the rest of the Negroes. You're no longer special. Get out the house, go back to the plantation. And when you back on that plantation with the rest of Black America, you will be treated and viewed just like the rest of Black America. Puffy might be shot. Bill Cosby may have been shot. R. Kelly may have been shot. How dare you do this to me? Look at what I've done for you. I've remade hip hop for you. It doesn't matter, Puff Daddy. You ain't had a hit in years. You ain't been musically relevant to the white power structure in years. Puffy should have been more careful about his behavior, although none of us, including me, would ever condone or excuse domestic abuse. When you no longer matter to them, they no longer matter to you.
And speaking of Whitney Houston, you feel like she was killed, right?
Yes, yes. Whitney Houston was murdered because she was no longer of value to the music company that owned her. Whitney Houston was no longer of value to the music company that owned her. Whitney Houston wanted her masters. She wanted her publishing. She wanted an audit on her money, and she was not going to get it. Here's the question that got to be asked. You're at the Los Angeles Hilton, I believe. That's a 5-star hotel. There's cameras on every floor. Whoever went into Whitney Houston's hotel room to take her life, it's on camera. Who had the power to tell the owners of the Los Angeles Hilton or Las Vegas Hilton, I think it was Los Angeles, who had the power to make them confiscate that Whitney Houston murder video showing the murderers entering the room? It had to be somebody with a lot of power. I believe it was somebody from Whitney Houston's label. And I believe that somebody allowed the Grammy party to continue while Whitney Houston's body was upstairs dead and floating in the tub. Whitney Houston was murdered. Michael Jackson was murdered because he was no longer of value to his company. He owned half of the Beatles catalog. He did not plan on selling it. The reason he was going to go on tour was to make enough money to satisfy the debt that his music company put him into, and he was put into that debt with his Invincible album. They sabotaged the Invincible album on purpose, putting Michael Jackson into debt so he'd have to give them back the Beatles catalog. Owning the Beatles catalog basically made Michael Jackson 50% owner of that music company, and they hated him for it. How dare you manipulate your way with your economic genius, Michael Jackson? With your economic genius, how dare you manipulate your way into 50% ownership of the most powerful music company in the world? They murdered Michael Jackson. He should have never come back to the LA Staples Center to practice for those concerts. He was living with his brother in Dubai. He should have stayed his ass in the Middle East. Michael Jackson is my all-time favorite recording artist. Tupac Shakur is my all-time favorite rapper. Whitney Houston is my all-time favorite female vocalist. And all three were murdered by the music industry with complicity from the white power structure and the FBI. Prince was murdered because Prince didn't want to turn over his unpublished music to that record label, and they manipulated him into this agreement that basically said, if you let us remaster the 25th anniversary Purple Rain album, if you let us remaster the 25th anniversary Purple Rain album, we're going to give you back all your publishing. That was nothing but a setup for a takeout. He never got the publishing back, or they might have gave it back to him, but soon thereafter, he ended up dead. And from what I last heard, that same company that murdered Prince, they now have most of his unpublished music. And you do know that Michael Jackson's estate sold a sizable portion of Michael Jackson's catalog, back to the company that murdered Michael Jackson. And on that Michael Jackson note, did you just see how his so-called son, the white boy Prince Michael, is not willing to give Mother Jackson, Michael Jackson's mother, needs some money, and Michael Jackson's fake Caucasian son won't give his black grandmother any of his so-called father's money. That's happening right now.
You for real?
Yes, the white boy won't give his Michael Jackson's mother no money. They in court right now. And this is why we got to stop the bunny.
Serious, man.
Yes. Yes.
That's disgusting.
It's correct. How you ain't going to take care of that man's mother? How you ain't going to take care of that man's mother? But I'm going to go to Vanessa Bryant. Same offense. No disrespect to Vanessa Bryant, Kobe's widow. But Kobe's mother and father just sold his NBA championship ring. They just sold it. Why? Because they need capital to live. They're elders. They need some money. From what I've heard, Vanessa Bryant ain't giving them a dime. Kobe Bryant left her almost $1 billion, and you mean to tell me that you don't have enough decency, enough respect to float Kobe Bryant's mother and father $1 million? Even if it's one time, Art. Even if it's one time. I don't really like y'all. I don't really mess with y'all. Y'all son told me not to be bothered with y'all, but because you are his parents, because he would have never existed without you, because if y'all don't give birth to Kobe Bryant, he never becomes my husband. I'm never in this financial position. Because of that, let me give you $1 million. Let me throw him $5 million. I'm not giving you no more, but I'm going to give you $5 million, but you can't come back again. Can we agree on that? Can we sign a non-disclosure? I'm going to give you this $5 million, but y'all can't come back. Fine. Give us the $5 million. She won't even throw them $1, bro. And then people get upset with me for being against interracial marriage. Listen, I'm not against white women. I'm not against red women, brown women, or yellow women. I am against the transfer of wealth out of the black community to white people who have taken enough from black America. Why are we marrying Asian women? Why are we giving our wealth to them? Why are we marrying white women? Why are we giving our wealth to them? We don't have enough as it is to rebuild black America. And you out here marrying women who you know going to take you to the cleaners when you no longer a celebrity, when you no longer got any money. Look at Michael Strahan. I just read an article the other day that Michael Strahan's white ex-wife, who already received $16 million, I believe was the amount, in the divorce settlement, plus a certain monthly allotment, she said that's not enough. She wants more money. And then I read some time back that RG3, the former NFL quarterback, he married a snow bunny, divorced her. She took a sizable chunk of his wealth. She wants more money. Tiger Woods' girlfriend sued him last year for putting her out the house, and she was not even his wife. What are we doing? What are we doing? When you are no longer making that money, these white women leave you, and they're going to take as much as they can get on their way out the door. But compare that to what black women get. Did you see what happened when Robert De Niro divorced the black woman, or when the black woman divorced Robert De Niro? She did not get half his money. Robert De Niro's ex-black wife did not get half of his money. You know what the courts gave her? $1 million a year. You're going to get $1 million a year until you get married. The minute you get married, you will no longer collect from your ex-husband. We don't benefit from interracial marriage. And here's my question, Art. If white people love us so much, if they got all this love for black people, why is the bedroom the only place they can show it? Why is behind closed doors the only time we see the love that white America professes for us? Why we don't see it in the classroom with our children? Why we don't see it in the courtroom when we're being sentenced to twice the amount of time in prison for the same offense as white people? Why we don't see it in the banks when we're looking for business loans and home loans? Why we don't see it in society where we're being murdered indiscriminately by white mass killers and white police? If white people love black people so much, why don't we see it anywhere else beyond the bedroom? We ain't nothing but a fetish. We ain't nothing but a pet. We ain't nothing but something for white folks to have a little bit of fun with. And when they done with you, they drop your ass off and take everything you got. It's not worth it. But we can't stop because the low self-esteem of black men, dictates that we get a white woman in order to feel better about ourselves and more equal to the white man.
And speaking of marrying an Asian woman, how you feel about Jeezy divorcing his wife?
I read something, and shout out to Jeezy. I hope he comes out on top and gets his daughter. Shout out to Jeezy. What I read was there was a clause in the prenup, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but if memory serves me correctly, there was a clause in the prenup that says she could get half or something to that effect if he engages in extramarital affair. If he commits adultery, it nullifies a part of the prenup that prevents her from taking half. And so she's making the argument, at least from what I'm hearing, she's making the argument that Jeezy cheated on her. And because he cheated on her, she should now have the right to go after most, if not all, of his assets. I hope that's not true, but that is the report. Like I said, I stand in solidarity with my brother Jeezy. I hope he comes out of that situation, but it's never a good thing to date outside your race or marry outside your race, because when it doesn't work out, do you want your black daughter being raised by white people who don't like black people? Do you want your black son being raised by Asians who don't like black people? Do you want your black children raised by Arabs or East Indians or Latinos who don't like black people? So you got to consider the fact that half of the marriages in America end in divorce. So if half the marriages end in divorce, mixed race marriages as well. So what are you going to do when your black son is being raised by a white mother who just married a Nazi as a husband? So now your black son is living in a house with a Nazi as his stepdad. These are things that you got to think about. I wish my brother Jeezy well. And I just think it's just another example as to why we need to stick with our own. I love black women. I'm for black women. I'm always going to defend black women. I don't care who don't like it. They are our natural God-given mates. They are who we are supposed to be with. We are not supposed to be mixing our seed because we are the chosen ones. And the chosen ones should only be reproducing with other chosen ones. It don't make us better than nobody, but we're different from everybody because we're the original man and woman, and we should not be mixing our seed outside of our kingdom.
I got you. But I want to ask you, right? Because you made some comments about and you got a lot of backlash for that, man. How did you feel when you was getting all that backlash for the comments you made about Eminem?
The Eminem controversy caught me by surprise because I didn't know that my position, like so many other positions that I have, would be considered controversial. I was doing a podcast interview. The topic came up. I think it was Joe Budden who suggested Eminem may be one of the greatest. And I said he could never be considered the GOAT. If you want to say he's one of the greatest, make that argument, but you will not call him the GOAT of a black cultural icon, of a black cultural product. You're not doing that. Our culture is our culture. We don't share it. If y'all want to give people privilege to participate, then they have participation privilege. But you cannot be the face of something my people made. This is not only true for me, this is true for most groups. But because black people suffer from post-traumatic slavery disease and we crave white validation more than oxygen, we are always looking to anoint some non-African as the face of something African people created. So when I said Eminem cannot be the GOAT, I never said he couldn't rap. I never said he didn't have talent. I simply said he can't be the GOAT. No more than DJ Khaled could ever be considered the GOAT as a DJ or producer because you are not African. So a lot of hip hop artists took offense. They came out of the woodworks with their unlicensed law degrees and served as Eminem's expert lawyer and publicist to the black world. And they defended that man better than Johnny Cochran defended O.J. Simpson, and basically told me I have no right to speak on the topic because I am not a rapper. Negro, I don't have to be a drug dealer to speak on drug dealing. I don't have to be a surgeon to speak on the racism that blacks suffer in the medical industry. And I don't have to be a rapper to speak on rap music. But as an African who grew up in hip hop, as an African who partakes in hip hop, as an African who is a safeguarder of all African culture, I will speak on anything my people create and anything my people are affected by. And I'm just disappointed, brother. Because just like we talked about Snow Bunny Barkley and Snow Bunny Shannon and LeBron James earlier defending Caitlyn Clark, we saw the same thing happen with these so-called gangster rappers who took Eminem's defense against your good brother, Dr. Umar Ifa Tunde. And you know what bothered me the most about all of these rappers defending Eminem without him even asking them to, without him even paying for them to do it? What offended me the most about it, Art, I've never seen any of them defend black women the same way. Now, one of these rappers who defended Eminem against me, I never seen a single one of them defend black women as ferociously as they defended Eminem. What did I say earlier? Politically effeminate. Our gangster rappers are politically effeminate. Our basketball players, NFL players, politically effeminate whenever it comes to holding white people responsible for appropriating black culture. Here comes the gangster rappers to defend their white Jesus. Here comes the basketball players to defend their white Jesus. It's absolutely insane. Black celebrities never defend us. They never defend black America, but whenever white folks are offended by black people, they're the first people to pop up. I'll take you to DJ Vlad, Culture Vulture, DJ Vlad. Culture Vulture, DJ Vlad, after that interview I did with Joe Budden, Culture Vulture, DJ Vlad brought all these rappers on his platform and celebrities. And he asked everybody, do you agree with Dr. Umar? He said Eminem could never be the GOAT of hip hop. And I think 99%, if not 100% of these celebrity black men defended Eminem and reinforced the integrationist colorblind narrative that anybody can be a GOAT of hip hop. Hip hop is for everybody. Do you know we the only people who claim such things? You can't go into somebody else's culture and hear them say, we invented this for us. But anybody can steal it, use it, exploit it, misappropriate it, and we won't have a problem with it. Only when it comes to black people can you come in, exploit, appropriate, take advantage of something we made for us, and everybody's supposed to be okay with it. And on that note of Culture Vulture DJ Vlad, he got checked recently because there was a conversation about the Drake Kendrick Lamar beef. The Drake Kendrick Lamar beef. It was a Twitter conversation going on, and a black female professor from Princeton, whose name I am forgetting, she checked Culture Vulture DJ Vlad and she said, "You're white. This is a black conversation. Stay out of it." Those are not her exact words. I'm paraphrasing, but she basically told him, "This is a black conversation. You white, stay out of it." Vlad, with all of his white privilege, took offense to that, and he responded to her by including Princeton University in the tweet. So he was basically bringing it to the attention of Princeton University that one of your black professors is telling me I don't have the right to participate in this private black conversation regarding this beef between these two rappers. Now, to be honest, he did apologize later. But of course he's going to do that because you have no right exploiting black culture and at the same time trying to get one of our black women fired. But guess what? When Vlad threatened to get that woman's job taken, when he threatened to make it known to her employer, Princeton University, that she told him he couldn't participate in that conversation on the Drake Kendrick beef, I didn't see a single rapper come to that sister's aid. I didn't see a single one of those celebrities who get interviewed on DJ Vlad's platform come to that sister's aid and say, "You can't do that, bro. We let you participate in our culture. We can dismiss you from our culture. How dare you make millions off of black culture and then try to get one of our women fired from a prestigious Ivy League job? Are you out of your mind?" Not one of them Negroes spoke up for black women. And this is why, Art, I understand why our sisters have so much contempt for us. We can defend DJ Vlad. We can defend Eminem. We can defend DJ Khaled. We can defend Caitlyn Clark. But what about all the other black women who are not being defended? We throw them right under the bus. I cannot take issue with the black woman being so angry at the black man because we are not unapologetic in defense of our women. But I want to draw a parallel. Beyonce just came out with a country music album, Cowboy Carter. First time in country music history that a black person charted #1 on the Billboard country music chart. First time ever. Beyonce's first country album, she charts first place Billboard country music. Did you see the reaction from the country music community? They threw Beyonce under the bus. They threw Beyonce under the bus. Not just the fans, the artists. The artists threw Beyonce under the bus. They were all over TikTok, all over Twitter, all over Instagram, talking about why she can't stay her butt in the ghetto. These are the comments. Why can't she stay in the ghetto? And we don't allow you to come dressed and have clothing. You got to cover all your body up. And why isn't R&B and pop music enough? Why you got to come and pollute our music? I want you to see the contradiction here, Art. When I said Eminem can't be the GOAT, hip hop's most popular rappers came out and tried to chastise Dr. Umar in defense of Eminem. But when Beyonce came out with the Cowboy Carter album as #1 for black artists, those white country musicians and their fan base attacked Beyonce vehemently. They tried to destroy that sister's credibility in the country music world, even though the roots of country music go to the slave plantations of America. The country music, the guitar, and all of that was born on the plantations where our ancestors slaved themselves. So were enslaved, not themselves, but were enslaved. So Beyonce has every right to get into country music. But guess what? They consider that their territory. And had white people invented country music, Art, I would have no problem with them telling Beyonce to stay out of our music because we want the best person in this genre to be one of us. I would have no problem with it The only problem with it is we actually invented country music, not white folks. But had they invented it, I would respect their decision and tell Beyonce, leave their music alone. But because we invented country music, Beyonce has all the right in the world to make a country music album if she wants to. It's the double standard. Everybody has a right to exploit Black art. Everybody has a right to appropriate Black art. Everybody has a right to take advantage of Black art. But let you try to infiltrate their art. Let you try to infiltrate their culture. They will reject you and send you back to where you come from. We have to accept everybody. Nobody has to accept us.
Yeah, the backlash you was getting for your comments was wild, man. I mean, I ain't expected to go that viral. But let's talk about voting, man. Should Black people vote for Trump?
Over the past year, I have heard more Black people say that they will be voting Republican this year than I have heard in any year of my life. And I'm a political science major, so I tend to follow Black voting trends rather frequently. It's something that I do. Studying behavior is what we do in the world of psychology. I don't think Black people really understand that they don't have anything to vote for. Now, let me be clear. I would never tell Black people not to vote because your vote will never matter to you until it's organized. Your vote matters to the politician because they need it to win. But your vote will never matter to the Black community until it is organized. Until we organize the Black vote, we cannot control political behavior. Without unity and solidarity, there is no power. Black people don't want to understand this because we hate each other more than the oppression that we suffer. Don't you find it interesting that nobody is trying to organize the Black vote? Think about that for a minute. All these celebrities, go vote. All these politicians, go vote. All these pastors, go vote. All these talking heads in the media, go vote. Why isn't anyone saying, organize yourselves, Black people, and then go vote? You know why? Nobody wants an organized Black vote because an organized Black vote equals Black power. Once we organize our vote, we can hold the mayor accountable. We can hold the governor accountable, the president accountable, city council accountable, state legislatures accountable, U.S. Congress accountable, Supreme Court accountable. When we get organized, we can demand changes in political behavior. If you are not organized, you are in no position to demand a change in political behavior. And Black people don't get it. I don't care if you vote Trump. He don't care nothing about Black folks. I don't care if you vote Biden. He don't care nothing about Black folks. So it don't matter who wins. America has an agenda to eliminate the American African. First, they want to eliminate the color of the American African. This is why they're pushing interracial dating and same-sex relationships through public school and media. They want to eliminate the dark skin. The reason they want to eliminate the dark skin is so they now have a racially ambiguous group of people who don't particularly feel Black and proud, and therefore they don't have to worry about any major Black protests against the power structure. The lighter we become, the less politically active we will become. So they want to lighten us up. They're trying to brainwash our kids into thinking that they can all marry white men and white women, which is never going to happen. Okay, and they're simply trying to confuse us and distract us away from rebuilding the traditional Black family. How do you eliminate a people? You eliminate their ability to reproduce themselves. And that's exactly what they're doing to us. And this back and forth between Black men and Black women, this isn't helping either. Every day you get on YouTube, Black men are castigating and ridiculing and demeaning and embarrassing and slandering Black women. And guess what? They doing the same thing. This is not the time for us to be fighting each other. We need each other and we need to work together because you're feeding into the rainbow agenda. You're feeding into the transgender agenda. You're feeding into the interracial agenda. Because if I'm a black kid in the 3rd or 4th grade in America, public school is telling me to become a homosexual. The media is telling me to change my gender. All the TV shows are telling me to get a white girl. And then I look at black men and black women on YouTube and all they doing is tearing each other apart. I might go get a white girl. I might consider doing something that's against African culture. So the black men and the black women have to be held accountable for how we're feeding into the anti-black family agenda of the United States power structure.
How you feel about Dwayne Wade and his son? It's a two-part question. How you feel about Dwayne Wade allowing his son to transition into a female, and how you feel about them coming out with a trans program for the youth?
I don't want to go in too heavy on Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union because I'm sure they get enough of it. But at the same time, I do want to let them both know that I'm completely disappointed in them as parent and step-parent. I remember seeing Dwayne Wade on the cover of Sports Illustrated, I believe it was. It was him, his son Zaire, who's now a pretty good basketball player, and his son Zion, who is now the artificial woman, Zaya. And they all had the hoodie on, standing up in defense of Trayvon Martin and against police genocide of black people. I don't know what happened between the time Dwayne Wade and his two sons put them hoodies on for Trayvon, all the way up until 4 years ago when Zion decided he wanted to live as an artificial female. I don't think Dwayne Wade understands the population control agenda of the United States government. I mean, do black people really understand that when your child undergoes sexual reassignment surgery, they remove their reproductive organ? They take it off. Do you really want your son to be castrated in childhood based on a decision that was engineered by American media? Something that he may later regret and want to revert back to his God-given identity as a natural, organic black man? Are you sure you want him to do that? And I'm not sure if Zion has had sex reassignment surgery. And if Dwayne Wade is watching me, I would ask my brother Dwayne Wade. Please do not let Zion go through with the sexual reassignment surgery. I don't know if he did yet or not. I do know they moved from Florida to California, and in California, children can receive sexual reassignment surgery. Now, according to Dwayne and Gabrielle, they moved to California because it is a more tolerant society for transgender youth than Florida. That's what they told the public. I'm hoping they didn't move over there so that boy can get the sexual reassignment surgery. Because once he gets his reproductive organ removed, he can never put it back. So I'm pleading with Dwayne Wade. I'm pleading personally as Dr. Umar with Dwayne Wade. Don't let Zion receive sexual reassignment surgery, Dwayne. And the reason I'm asking you not to let him get that surgery is when he's only 17. He's only 17. He was 13 or 14 when he came out as wanting to live his life as an artificial female. He's only 17. What happens when he's 27 and he finds God, or his ancestors find him, or he comes into black consciousness, meets Dr. Umar and changes his mind and says, I want to be a black man. I now understand how special it is to be the father of civilization. What you going to do then, Dwayne? If you let that boy get his reproductive organs removed on a California surgeon's table. So I'm hoping Dwayne Wade, and I'm going to go a step further. I'm going to say Dwayne Wade has enough integrity and forethought that even with Gabrielle Union breathing down his neck, I believe Dwayne Wade will not allow his son to engage in sexual reassignment surgery until he's old enough to make that decision for himself. I'm going to give Dwayne Wade credit right here, right now, and say Dwayne Wade is not going to allow the media, Gabrielle Union, or anyone else to force his hand, including his son Zion. He's not going to let Zion force his hand into getting sexual reassignment surgery in California. I'm going to say Dwayne Wade is going to do the right thing and recognize this might just be a stage in my son's identity development. He may revert back to his natural God-given self and identity as a black man. So I will not let my son get his reproductive organ removed from his body until he's old enough to make that decision for himself. I'm going to give Dwayne Wade that credit because that would be a disaster. That would be a catastrophe. Because one thing that the media isn't talking about is the fact that transgender black youth and transgender white youth have some of the highest suicide rates in America. I don't know if you know this. They have some of the highest suicide rates in America. Now, the media narrative is they're being bullied and they're not being accepted, and so they're killing themselves. I disagree with that. I know transgendered youth. I work with them. This is what I do. I'm a certified school psychologist. You know what I see happening? They take on this new lifestyle. They realize it was the worst decision they could have ever made. They're now trying to adjust to the new life and they can't. And they're now angry and disappointed in their parents and family for letting them do it. And when they find out that they can't revert back biologically or surgically, they take their life after realizing that there's no coming back if they've already taken the hormones or had the sexual reassignment surgery. They're killing themselves, Art, because they should have never been allowed to undergo that type of physical transformation as a child in the first place. The media is telling you they're being bullied into suicide. That is not true. Yes, there is some bullying of transgender children, but they are the most protected children in society. You go to jail for bullying a homosexual. You go to jail for bullying a transgender. You could do whatever you want to do to black kids. You can call them N-word, shoot them, kill them. Nobody's going to do anything. But LGBTQ children, they're the most protected children in America. They are not being bullied in plain sight. They're taking their life after realizing that I should have never done this to myself and nobody should have let me do this to myself. And now that I don't know how to change it back, I'm just going to take my life early. That's why they're killing themselves. So I don't pick on transgender youth. I don't believe on picking on people, period. I don't pick on LGBTQs. I don't agree with the lifestyle, but I would never encourage harm or hurt to anyone of that community. As far as the black LGBTQs, I believe that they suffer from mental illness that needs to be addressed, therapy, family issues, abandonment issues, trauma issues, abuse issues, so forth and so on, and they simply need help. They simply need some good black mental health treatment, especially our same-sex dating sisters. So I'm not against my people. I love all black people and I respect all human beings, but we are under a population control agenda. Let me ask you a question. If people don't believe transgenderism in children is not a population control strategy, why is Planned Parenthood leading the charge to help our children transgenderize themselves? We good? Planned Parenthood was founded October the 16th of 1916. October the 16th of 1916, I believe, was the date. It came out of the Birth Control League, founded by Margaret Sanger, a member of the American Eugenics Society, who was a racist and a eugenicist who wanted to eliminate black people. She started Planned Parenthood, which grew out of her Birth Control League. The Birth Control League was 1916. It changed its name to Planned Parenthood in 1942. It's the same organization that Margaret Sanger started in Brooklyn to get rid of unwanted black babies. Why are they giving out hormone therapy pills? Why are they giving out hormone replacement pills? Why is Planned Parenthood giving out puberty blockers, Art? I thought you was about abortions and hysterectomies, but you're giving out testosterone pills, estrogen pills, puberty blockers, hormone pills. Planned Parenthood is leading the charge. What does abortion have to do with transgenderism? You know what abortion has to do with transgenderism? They both lead to Black genocide. That's why Planned Parenthood is one of the biggest pushers of transgenderism in the Black community. It's genocide, it's extermination, and it's population control.
What you think about the people that feel like, Gabrielle Union, she's the one behind this. She's the one that, read the pants in the relationship. She's the one that got, Dwayne Wade's son doing all this stuff.
How do I feel about Dwayne Wade letting Gabrielle run the show? For starters, are we sure he's doing that? And the reason I'm asking, since I'm not in the household, how much of this is her and how much of this is him? I don't know. Initially, obviously, the rumor is, the unverified rumor was that Gabrielle basically came into those children's lives, manipulated her way in, and kind of forced this way of thinking onto the innocent young boy, Zion. It's unverified. But the more this goes on and the longer this lasts, I kind of believe both of them are supportive of this type of psychological manipulation. That new organization, the new trans organization that Zion and his father founded, it seems like they did that without Gabrielle. Now, that doesn't mean she's not operating in the trenches somewhere, or it could just be a situation where Dwayne Wade has finally had this forced upon him. And although he may have been reluctant in the beginning, it may be easier on him just to go along with it. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's something missing from the whole story that we are never going to get until Zion is old enough and comfortable enough to tell the world the whole story. Something ain't right about this. Everything from, him being 13, wanting to be a girl, that's not natural for a Black kid, to Gabrielle embracing it as earnestly as she did. Most Black women don't thirst for a transgender son. And she's not even a biological parent. To Dwayne appearing, at least publicly, to be very docile and accepting of how aggressively Gabrielle was pushing his son into this way of life. So we can only go off the spectacle of what is seen. I think the truth is about 10 or 20 years from now before it's really going to be shown to us what really happened here. This will be a documentary for the ages when the whole story comes out. But I think we might be 10 or 20 years too soon to see that.
Is there a mental health crisis in the Black community?
There is definitely a mental health crisis in the Black community. When you look at the Black on Black fratricide taking place in our community, Philadelphia, Chicago, Baltimore, Brooklyn, Miami, Oakland, wherever you go, Black men are killing each other. And we're not only killing each other, we're killing our women and children as well. One of the things that bothers me about crime in the Black community is, even though we have a crime world, just like every ethnicity has a crime world. The Irish have an underworld. The Italians have an underworld. The Asians have an underworld. But their crime is organized. It's organized. In the heyday of the Italian mafia, there was a rule. You don't kill women. You don't kill children. You don't kill the elders. They better never get hit with a bullet. If you got to take somebody out, you better make sure the women and the children don't get hit. If they do, we take you out. That was the rule. In the Black community, we don't have any rules to the crime. It's not organized. We have disorganized crime. Other communities have organized crime. We have disorganized crime. We don't care. We kill kids, women, elders, the physically challenged. It is out of control. And the only way we're going to get control of it is Black men. able-bodied black men have to take to the streets and reclaim the black community. It's the only thing that's going to stop it. It's the one thing that black women are begging us to do. And it's the only thing that's going to return us to the level of respect we used to get from our women. We got to take the streets back from our sons. It is our sons, collectively, our village. They're the ones terrorizing the neighborhood. As far as mental health go, the reason why you don't see more black people seek out mental health is because we understand that our psychological issues, our economic issues, our sociological issues, they were caused by white psychology. See, the man who created the blueprint for racism in America was a psychologist. The man who created the blueprint for the apartheid system in South Africa was a psychologist. The man who created the blueprint for white supremacy in England was a psychologist. The man who created the blueprint for white supremacy in England was a psychologist. The psychologists were the architects of white supremacy, white privilege, and along with that, the belief in the unhumanity or inhumanity or bestiality of African people. It was the psychologists who said we were half monkeys. It was the psychologists who said we came from jungles. It was the psychologists that justified the oppression, segregation, dehumanization, and enslavement of African people. I mean, look at Francis Galton, the white psychologist from London. He is the father of eugenics. He came up with the word eugenics, racial science, the extermination of African people who they believe to be genetically and psychologically inferior. That movement came from a white psychologist in London, Francis Galton. You know, we have to look at Henry H. Goddard, who brought the IQ test from France to America and used it to misdiagnose black children and therefore deny them a quality education. So I'm not surprised black people are not rushing in to see white psychologists, white psychiatrists, white therapists, because they don't care about us. I've studied psychology my whole life. I have a doctorate in it. I'm a certified school psychologist. They don't care about us. They don't care about us. So why are black people going to go and bare their soul in an office with a stranger who happens to be a Caucasian when you know they don't genuinely care about you? When we are trained in therapy in graduate school, when we are trained in therapy, we are told in order to help your patient, you have to care about that patient. You got to care. And if the patient doesn't feel like you care about them, they will not realize any therapeutic gains. It don't matter how much training you have. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have. It doesn't matter your psychological therapeutic orientation, whether you a humanist, Gestalt, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychodynamic, or behavioral. It don't matter. If you don't care about the patient, they will not improve. White people generally don't care about black people. So why would we go to them? You know why they're pushing mental health in the black community right now? They want us for two things: diagnosis and drug distribution. They get paid for diagnosing us and they get paid for distributing drugs to us. They want you to get a bipolar diagnosis. They want you to get a depression diagnosis. They want you to get an anxiety diagnosis so they can give you some medication. The Wall Street drug companies are a $30+ billion a year, and the Wall Street drug companies sees Black America as an untapped gold mine of psychological patients that they can get evaluated, diagnosed, and medicated. They're not trying to help you. They want you evaluated and medicated. They get money for the diagnosis and they get money for the drugs. They want to put the entire Black America on drug abuse through the pharmaceutical companies. And let me tell you why this is such a contradiction, Art. If America wants to turn the Black community into a drug warehouse where everybody has a mental health diagnosis and everybody is taking a mental health drug, isn't that a contradiction? Because in the 1980s, racist President Ronald Reagan passed the Drug Abuse Control Act. And the Drug Abuse Control Act is the act that gave us 5 years of mandatory minimum prison time if you got caught with 5 ounces of crack. That was the law that started filling up the prisons. That was President Ronald Reagan with the Drug Control and Abuse Act. If we catch you with some crack, even if you just smoking it, which means you should what? Go to a rehab. If I'm a drug addict, why am I going to jail? Drug addicts should go to treatment. Drug addicts should go to therapy. Drug addicts should go to rehab. But that's not what Ronald Reagan did with the Drug Abuse and Control Act. He said, if we catch you with 5 ounces of crack, you're going to jail for 5 years. However, if you're white, you have to be caught with 500 grams of powder. Black people, y'all smoke crack more than white people. We catch you with 5 grams, you're going to do 5 years. White people, you use powder more than black people. So guess what? You need 500 grams of powder to go to jail for 5 years, but you only need 5 grams of crack when the research proves that powder cocaine and crack cocaine commit the same damage to the human brain. So why was there a discrepancy like that? Ronald Reagan and the racist U.S. Congress set it up that way to fill the prisons up with black men. And so now we go 360. They want to hook us on drugs. But 40 years ago, you wanted to lock us up for drugs. So which one is it? Do you want us on drugs or do you want us off drugs? Because you can't lock us up for drugs and then tell us to take drugs to deal with your glow-in-the-dark, invisible mental health diagnosis. The whole thing is a scam to get black people diagnosed and medicated so the drug companies can get paid. It's about money. It is not about mental health.
Right, right. And I want to ask you about this. You started a movement for child support, right?
Yes, sir. I am about to start a movement. I am about to start a movement to eradicate the child support system as it is. Now, before I explain this, I want black women to understand it is not cheap to raise children. It is not free to raise children. When black women hear Dr. Umar say that I want to lead a movement to eradicate the child support system in America, I want my sisters to understand that I want to eliminate the child support system as it is. I don't have a problem with the system whereby black men are made to be responsible to take care of their children financially. I don't have a problem with a system. I want to be clear. I do not oppose a system of child support. What I oppose is the criminalization of black men through child support. And that is what we have. The reason I want to destroy the system, Art, is fivefold. Number one, in many states, child support has been disconnected from child custody. Child support has been disconnected from child custody. What that means is you have to pay for your child, but they're not always guaranteeing that you see your child. I know hundreds of black men who pay child support who have almost no contact with their child because the courts are not making the mothers respect the custody agreement. So we want custody and support to be put together. If I cannot see my child, you cannot get my money. So again, I'm not against a system of child support. I am against this system. Number two, the child support system is not about making sure children get money to be cared for. It is a system that incarcerates black men and uses child support as the reason. Let me give you a couple of examples. When you go to court, if you don't have the money to pay your child support, the judge will tell you, I'm giving you a new date in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, you better be back with $1,000, $5,000, whatever the case may be. And if you don't show up in my courtroom without that $5,000, I'm locking you up. Well, guess what, Art? I just got out of jail. I ain't got no job. I ain't got nowhere to live. My child support was growing while I was in prison. And so when I get out, the judge tells me he needs $5,000 by the end of the month or I'm going back to jail. Do you know what the judge just told me to do? He just told me to go sell drugs without selling drugs. He just told me to go rob somebody without robbing somebody. He just told me to go steal cars or hustle credit cards without actually saying that. Because how am I going to get $5,000 in 2 weeks without no job? I'm going to have to rob, steal, or sell drugs. So what I'm saying is the child support system, as it is currently constituted, Art, it breeds crime because it puts black men in a situation where they have no choice but to commit crime in order to pay that child support bill so they don't go back to jail. On top of that, they will suspend your driver's license. How in the hell am I going to get back and forth to work if you suspend my driver's license? Let me give you a true story. True story. I was in child support court, and there was a brother sitting next to me. He said, Dr. Umar, I'm about to go to jail and lose my job. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I owe the court $2,500. I just got a new job. I told the judge I will bring my first paycheck. He gave the judge his boss name, boss number, boss confirmed the payment. And he said, let me work and I will bring you my check. And he told his boss to tell the judge that he won't even give the check to him. The boss will bring the check to the court, but don't lock him up. He just started on the job. I need him. And if you send him to jail, I got to let him go. Guess what the judge did? Suspended his license anyway, locked him up. He lost his job. There's no way child support court is about child support. Because if it was about child support, why didn't you leave that man out in the streets so he can work and take care of his baby? You suspended his license, locked him up, which led to him losing his job. Does that sound like you care about fathers earning money to take care of their children? You don't. And then Bill Clinton, let me tell you what your man Bill Clinton did. 1998, right after Bill Clinton passed the largest crime overhaul bill in American history, the 1994 Violent Crime Control Act, which gave us 3 strikes and you out. 3 strikes and you out. You can go to jail for the rest of your life. Mandatory minimum sentencing for nonviolent drug-related offenses. Bill Clinton, 4 years after the crime bill, guess what he passed? The Deadbeat Parent Punishment Act, 1998. Deadbeat Parent Punishment Act, 1998. You know what Bill Clinton said? Bill Clinton says if your child support goes to $5,000, that is a felony crime, you go to jail. Well, guess what, Art? If I owe $5,000 and that's a federal crime, a felony crime, and I go to jail and I got a felony on my record, who's going to hire me with a felony? How are you helping fathers pay child support when you send them to jail with a felony for not being able to pay the child support? And then he said, if you cross state lines, check this out. If you cross state lines while you owe the child support, you will be accused of dodging your child support. And under the Deadbeat Parent Punishment Act of 1998, you will go to jail for a mandatory minimum amount of time just because you cross lines. Check it out, Art. You could have crossed lines for your job. What if I'm going to Delaware to work? What if I'm going to New Jersey to work? What if I'm going to Maryland to work? I went cross lines to feed my baby, and you lock me up and accuse me of dodging my responsibilities. I want to destroy the child support system in America as it is. I'm going to be holding meetings in every state for black men to get organized. And we are going to fight this system, and we are going to destroy that system and make them come up with a new one that does not criminalize black men. Black men are the least employed. We're the least educated, the most incarcerated. How dare you give me a felony, prison time, poor education, no postgraduate training at all, put me on a child support payment plan that I didn't agree with, and the minute I fall behind in my arrears, you're going to bust me to prison, taking me away from my baby, putting a felony on my record, and not even giving me a chance to earn a living the decent way. The child support system as is currently designed is criminally insane. And the last point I want to say on child support is this, Art. The 14th Amendment gives us equal protection under the law. The 14th Amendment gives us the right to be represented by an attorney, due process. When you go to child support court, do you have an attorney with you? Not necessarily. And they get away with not providing us with adequate representation in child support court. Do you want to know why? It's considered civil proceedings, not criminal proceedings. This is how the child support system has gotten away all these years, operating as a criminal enterprise, but calling it a civil. Because they call child support civil proceedings, technically, you don't have to be represented by an attorney. But if child support can land me in jail, if child support can lead to a conviction, it's not a civil proceeding. Civil is strictly money. Criminal is prison time. If child support can land me in jail, how is it civil? It's not a civil proceeding. It's a criminal proceeding. And every black man that walks into child support should be represented by counsel, but they are not. So we're going to have to organize, fight, destroy the system, and make them rebuild it.
Right. But yeah, man, I mean, it sounds like a good idea, man. I'm gonna be looking forward to your movement, man. I like what I'm hearing. But I want to ask you, because I see people always making this comment. So I want to ask you, do you feel like black people, they created the ghetto?
No, black people did not create the ghetto. The United States government created the ghetto. And in particular, 1934 Fair Housing Act. It was the Fair Housing Act that was subsidized by the federal government that gave poor and working class white people low interest loans and housing grants to escape the ghetto, move outside the ghetto into an all white community, and at the same time, trap black people in the ghetto by not giving us the same opportunities to move into the suburbs with a low interest federally subsidized loan. It was the Federal Housing Authority that prevented banks. It was the government that told banks not to finance black houses in the hood. It was the government that told banks not to give black people low interest housing loans so they could move out the ghetto and move into the suburb. Suburban America is a creation of the Federal Housing Authority of 1934. And you don't begin to see any redress for this, Art, until when? 1968. What happens in 1968? The Fair Housing Act. So for 34 years, white people by the federal government were being subsidized to own their own homes, own their own property, while black people were not being given those opportunities, trapped in the ghetto, and not even being allowed to buy property in the ghetto. Why you think it's so easy for them to gentrify us right now? You know why it's so easy to gentrify us right now? Because they redline the ghetto. That's what the word redlining comes from. The federal government told the banks and the underwriters, you are not to underwrite any housing loans where we circle in red. And you know what was circled in red? The black community. So although we were not going to finance the black community, we're not going to improve the black community, but guess what? We're not even going to help them improve themselves, because we're not going to give loans for black people to buy up the ghetto and turn it into a thriving black community. So in essence, the same government that subsidized suburban white America underfunded the ghetto. And guess what? From 1934 to 1968, them 34 years, the wealth gap between black America and white America mushroomed. It exploded. It was already wide because of slavery. We started off with a wealth gap. But when they started subsidizing poor white people, giving them the opportunity to live a decent life in the suburbs, owning a piece of property, but not giving black people the same opportunity, white people were able to do what? Send their kids to college with a college loan off of their property. They could open up a business with a business loan and use their home as collateral. They were able to buy a second home when they paid off the first home. And this is how working class white America built their wealth from 1930 to 1968. And even though we have the Fair Housing Act today, it's not respected and upheld. The wealth gap rests upon a foundation of residential segregation created, sanctioned, and reinforced by the U.S. government in collaboration with the white banks of America. The wealth gap was built on purpose because they gave a housing opportunity to white people that they would not give to black people. And I will quote, let me give you a direct quote to support what I'm saying. President Lyndon Baines Johnson put together the Kerner Commission in 1966-67 to investigate the causes of the 1967 race riots. The Kerner Commission came back with their report. And the Kerner Commission, and you should get this book if you haven't read it, all your listeners and viewers, please get a copy of the Kerner Commission on Civil Disorders, 1967. Read it, because everything in it still applies to this day. And what the Kerner Commission told President Lyndon Baines Johnson, and you will read this in the book, you can get a used copy for $5 on the internet. They said, what Black America, quote, I'm quoting, quote, Kerner Commission, quote, what Black America can never forget and what white America can never understand is that white America is deeply implicated in the ghetto. I'm still quoting. What Black America can never forget, what white America can never seem to understand, is that white America is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it. End quote. That's coming out the Kerner Commission. And by the way, that Kerner Commission is one of the reasons the good Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April the 4th, 1968. The Kerner Commission was released a few weeks before Dr. King's murder. They could not afford, J. Edgar Hoover and Lyndon Baines Johnson could not afford for Dr. Martin Luther King, who was about to leave Memphis and go to Washington, D.C. to lead his breadbasket campaign. They could not afford for him to get his hands on that Kerner Commission with the information in the Kerner Commission and take that to D.C. as part of his breadbasket campaign, because if Dr. King would have been armed with the information from the president's own advisory council, he would have been unstoppable, brother. Dr. King, with the Kerner Commission, would have brought the United States government to his knees, and that's why they had to kill him. And guess what the Kerner Commission recommended? And tell me this isn't as relevant now as it was then. You need to hire black police. Black people should be policed by people who look like them. Don't that sound familiar? Don't that sound real familiar? They said hire black police. Guess what else they said? Jobs. Black people need jobs. Y'all need to create jobs for black people. If you want to reduce the crime, black men need livable wage jobs. They talked about job training, the building trades, the reduction of systemic racism, poor housing, everything our people dealing with right now, brother. Everything we dealing with in 2024 was outlined in 1968 by the Kerner Commission as things America need to address if they want to deal with the race problem. Let me ask you a question. How many presidents have we had since Lyndon Baines Johnson? You had Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. You are 9 presidents since LBJ. Which one of them has implemented any of the recommendations of the 1968 Presidential Kerner Commission. None of them did. It's heavy, brother. It's heavy. They created the ghetto. And this is how you know that they controlled the ghetto. In the year 2000, when President George W. Bush decided that white America was going to take back all of the major inner cities, look how easy they took them back. They came in and pushed us right out. You know why? Because they never subsidized mortgages in the ghetto until white people were ready to come back. Now, what do you see in every ghetto now? White people being subsidized to buy up cheap property in the black ghetto that they turning into $1 million mansions and multi-million dollar gated communities. So the same property they would not let us buy, they're now subsidizing white people to buy and turn it into a white community.
Damn. Yeah, you right, man. I mean, you seeing that a lot in the hood. But I want to ask you, do you believe in having a soulmate?
Do I believe in people having soulmates? Let me preface my answer with this. I am a practitioner of Yoruba spirituality coming out of Nigeria. In Yoruba culture, in heaven, before you incarnate, you negotiate a destiny with Almighty God. Your purpose on earth is to find and to fulfill your destiny. Anybody you marry will influence your behavior, your lifestyle, and whether or not you fulfill your destiny. So from the perspective of there's a certain type of a woman Dr. Umar needs in order to fulfill my God-given destiny, I believe in a soulmate. However, I want to preference that or modify that response by saying, I believe you can have more than one. I believe that there are soul mates, and any one of them would be good for you. Let's say you get married and God forbid your wife dies prematurely. God forbid. Does that mean you can never have another soulmate? I don't agree with that. There's a certain type of a woman that will be best for you in this life. A certain type of a woman. And of that type, there might be 5 or 6 of them. In other words, I believe a man could have 2 wives and they both be his soulmates. Or you could have one wife and she can be a soulmate. But if that relationship doesn't work out, if you find another woman of the same vibration and frequency, once again, you have found a soulmate. So I believe in the prototype. I don't believe that there's only just one person for you.
So what I would ask you is this. What if your soulmate is what?
I do not believe, in all honesty and integrity, answering this question in the presence of my ancestors, I do not believe that a black person could have a non-African soulmate. I absolutely, positively do not believe that, and I will tell you why. What we have been through at the hands of non-African people, the work that lies before us to reconstruct African reality, the psychological and spiritual trauma that we have faced at the hands of Caucasians and others. There is no way anybody could convince me that the Almighty, as well as the ancestors and the divinities, would create a situation that you would need your oppressor's daughter to be your wife in this life in order to fulfill your God-given destiny during this incarnation. I absolutely, positively do not believe that. And in fact, to your point, Art, I saw a clip of an interview that Iyanla Van Zant did with my good brother Nick Cannon not too long ago. And if memory serves me correctly, Queen Iyanla Van Zant said to Nick, when he asked her about interracial dating, she said something to the effect, what if your soulmate is of another race? And I want to tell Queen Mother Iyanla Van Zant, who I love and respect, although I don't agree with all of her integrationist views, she is outside of her mind. And Iyanla Van Zant, if you're watching this, your son, Dr. Umar, wants you to know that you are 100% incorrect in telling Nick Cannon that he can have a soulmate of another race. No such thing could exist. It is against divine justice and it is against the ancestral engineering of our incarnation. You will never, ever, ever have a soulmate of another race if you are the chosen people, the original people, African people. Your soulmate will also be amongst the chosen.
But what if you have a guy that he wants to marry a black woman, he wants to have kids with a black woman, but at this very moment he's single and he wants to have fun until he find a right, black woman. So, he wants to have sex with, women outside his race until he find a, right black woman. But he ain't taking them serious.
But see, he still has to answer the question. And the question is, why are you spending any time at all with a woman of another race? What is the white woman offering the black man that he cannot get from the black woman? What is the Asian, the Arab, the Latino? What are they offering the black man that he can't get from the black woman? There's only one thing that she can offer that he cannot get from the black woman, and that is her race. Whether he's marrying her or just having sex with her, he is attracted and intrigued by the fact that she is Caucasian. So no matter how you cut the cake, his inferiority complex and his love of the oppressor and his lust for the Caucasian female is the reason why he's spending any time with her at all. That is what we are ignoring. Why are you even being bothered? There's more black women in the world than of any other community. Why are you even being bothered? Because up until 1967, Loving versus Virginia, you could have went to jail for being caught with a white woman. So don't tell me you can't help it because it was federal law. So when it was federal law, you stayed as far away from that white woman as you can. Now that it's no longer federal law, you're telling me you can't help but be around white women. That is an excuse. You have an inferiority complex that can only be addressed by being with a white girl. Only when you are with the white woman do you feel equal to the white man. And that is the one thing that all of these snow bunny hoppers will never admit: inferiority complex. It is at the root as to why black men pursue white women. There is no getting around it.
Do you believe in polygamy? If so, how do we get to a point where black women would accept it?
Yes. Black women are against polygamy, and I understand why. Because black women have been taken advantage of by us. We have used them, abused them, and discarded them. So I understand why many black women are against polygamy. Although I can understand the trauma, I have to still entertain the conversation with them because I recognize in this theater of racial oppression, we have to consider plural marriage for able-bodied heterosexual black men because it's one of the quickest ways to stabilize the community, provide every woman with a mate and every child with a father. Economically speaking, you can do more with 4 incomes than 1. You could do more with 3 incomes than 2. So if you look at it economically, polygyny has to factor into the conversation as to how Black America could save itself because there's not enough black men to go around. Homosexuality, transgenderism, black on black homicide, mass incarceration, mental illness is claiming the life of able-bodied black men. Only 1 out of every 4 black women are ever going to get married, and most of them will be divorced within 5 years. So if we want to stabilize the black community, some women will have to share the husband. And it would be easier for us to have this conversation, Art, if sisters would take their emotion out of it. But if we're expecting black women to take their emotion out of it and look at marriage from a revolutionary perspective and not simply a romantic perspective, if we're expecting black women to do that, then we also have to ask black men to stop sexually objectifying our women. Take sex out of it for a minute, black man, and black women take your emotions out of it for a woman, for a minute, black woman. So if the black man can take sex out of it, and if the black woman could take emotion out of it long enough for us to have an accurate and mature political analysis of the potentiality of plural marriage in the black community, then we probably can get somewhere. I'm not saying every man is able to do it. I'm not saying every woman should have to do it. I'm not saying polygamy should be a permanent marriage opportunity in the black community. I'm saying for 25 years, we may have to do this. For 50 years, we may have to do this until everything stabilizes itself. And when we no longer have black men killing each other, when we no longer have black parents transgenderizing their children, we no longer have black men going to jail committing economic crimes because we're able to take care of ourselves, then we can go back to one man, one woman. But you don't have enough men to practice one man, one woman. And black women, I must challenge them. Don't be hypocritical, my sisters. Don't be hypocritical, because the same black women who will tell you that they do not support polygyny, the same black women who will tell you that they do not support polygyny will turn around and date a married man behind his wife's back. I've seen it. We've all seen it. So how can you say you don't support plural marriage, but you're dating a married man? So black women cannot be hypocritical about this, and black men cannot be hypocritical about this either. If black men are going to be allowed to have more than one wife, it can't just be the beautiful women. Everybody can't look like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. They can't all look like Sanaa Lathan. No, you're going to have to get some sisters who are not that beautiful. Sisters who might not be the weight you want, might not have the job you want them to have, might not have the education you want them to have. We have to scientifically engineer polygyny, because I do agree with black women on this point. If we do this and we don't do it right, we will never be able to do it again. And the trust between black men and black women may be ruined forever. So I am with my sisters on we need to be careful about this, but at the same time, I am with the community that we do need to consider this.
How you feel about guys that live a double life? They got a wife at home, and behind her back, they messing around with men.
I'm going to say this. As I've said in previous conversations, I love all black people. All black people. Sexually confused. Whatever your situation is, I love black people. Even if I don't agree with your lifestyle because it is a threat to the survival of the black family, I love black people. But the one group within the Rainbow Coalition that I do take issue with, Brother Art, are the down low black men. And the reason I take issue with down low black men is because you are putting the health of heterosexual black women in question. If you lay with men orally, anally, or any other way, that woman has a right to know so she can decide if she wants to put her life at risk to be with you. The anus is a direct route to the bloodstream. That's why babies often get their vaccinations, and I do not support vaccinations, but babies often get their vaccinations in the anus because it's a direct route to the bloodstream. So if you are engaging in anal sex with another man, and then you're laying with your woman through her vagina, she can pick up that AIDS, she can pick up that syphilis or anything else that is out there. It is extremely dangerous for gay black men to mislead our women into believing that they are heterosexual when they are not. It is selfish. It is not fair. It is dangerous. And I'm going to say downright evil. And I can tell you, as a psychotherapist, I have had to do therapy with men who had to confess to me in therapy that they were bisexual, married to a woman, and having relations with men. And do you know what I had to focus on with them in therapy? Building up their will and their honesty. Because you have to go home and tell that woman that you have been putting her life in jeopardy by having sex with men. And if you don't do it, because what I do is I require that she has to have a conversation with me after you have a conversation with her, because she's going to be traumatized. So I'm going to need to help her process the trauma. If I don't hear from her, that means you didn't tell her. And as a therapist, do you know when your client loses therapist client confidentiality? Do you know when that ends? If your client tells you that they are putting somebody's life in danger or at risk of putting someone's life in danger, as the therapist, I'm obligated to either call the police, tell that victim, or do both. I'm required to let her know what you're doing behind her back. If you don't, if I believe her life is in jeopardy, or I have to contact the authorities. And I share this with the client. I let him know, this is how this is going to go. We're going to work. And then there's going to be a date where you're going to tell her. It needs to come from you, not me, because you're the one who did this. Be man enough to tell her. And you're going to tell her to her face. And then I'm going to help her process it. And if we need to meet together after that, we can do that. But if it's one population I do have a problem with, down low Black men who put Black women's life, health, and safety in jeopardy by having relations with men behind their back, bringing those diseases home and not telling our sisters.
Yeah, that ain't cool, man. I mean, if you doing that behind your girl back and you ain't telling her what's going on, man. Yeah, man, not cool at all, man. But one thing I want to ask you about, how you feel about the backlash Eminem got for the line he made about Megan Thee Stallion? He got a line in his new song saying that, let me see if I can pull it up right quick. Let me see. All right, here we go. If I was to ask Megan Thee Stallion if she'll collab with me, would I really have a shot at her feet?
Okay.
And you know, feet, that's, short for feature.
I guess it wasn't appropriate. Here's my thing. Whether it's Culture Vulture, DJ Vlad, whether it's Eminem, we should have rules for outsiders who come into our culture. And one of those rules, the first rule should be that you will not be allowed to disrespect Black women at any time for any reason. If you feel disrespected by a Black woman, you will come to a Black man and we will mediate the situation. But you are not allowed to make jokes. You are not allowed to insult. And if I was in charge, you're not allowed to make contact, especially not aggressive contact with Black women for any reason. The problem with us is we invite everybody to the table with no rules to follow.
If I'm not mistaken, because I've never heard it personally, but I heard that it's some audio or a mixtape out there of him coming at Black women. Is that true?
He does have that. He does have audio dissing Black women. Someone sent me something where he has used the N-word. Of course, he attacked Michael Jackson back when Michael Jackson was being accused of child molestation, which we found out later to be all fabricated. The reason Michael Jackson was accused of the child molestation, the reason those fake charges were put on Michael Jackson, is at the time Michael Jackson was he was actually in the process of offering a bid to buy Marvel Comics. Michael Jackson was going to be the owner of Marvel Comics and the owner of the Beatles catalog. Think about that for a minute. And that is part of the reason why the white power structure of this country decided to ultimately destroy him publicly and then take his life. Michael Jackson was a financial genius, as was Prince. Imagine if Michael Jackson created Black Panther. Now, our good brother did a good job. Ryan Coogler, hats off to him. He did a great job in Black Panther. But could you imagine if Michael Jackson was the owner of Marvel when Black Panther was created? Could you imagine how much more fascinating that movie and every other movie out of the Marvel studio would have been with Michael Jackson's DNA all over it? Michael Jackson was in the process of buying Marvel, and that's why he had to be accused of molesting those children.
I had no idea that he was trying to buy Marvel, but I want to ask you, how you feel about the situation between Drake and Kendrick calling him a colonizer?
I listen to mostly older rappers. A lot of my music is 90s. 80s, 2000s. Same thing with R&B. Here's my take. I will never deny a mixed race African their Africanity. As a Pan-Africanist myself and all of my Pan-Africanist forefathers going back 300 years, we have always affirmed that mixed race Africans were Africans as long as they identify. If Drake considers himself a black man, full time now, this is not part time. If Drake considers himself an African on a full time basis, he's my brother. Now, to Kendrick's point, if Drake is acting black but living white, if he's only trying to be black to sell records, but in his private life, he conducts himself and identifies as a white man, if he plan on raising his children as mixed race kids or white, then I got an issue with Drake. I don't accept that crap. If you mix race, you're going to be black and that's it. You don't have to renounce your white family. That's your family. That's your white mother, your white father. You respect your parents. Always respect your in-laws, respect your grandparents, respect them. But politically and spiritually and socially, you're African. If that's where Drake is, I'm good with it. But as far as Kendrick Lamar highlighting contradictions in Drake's political behavior, I don't have a problem with the highlights if they are true. But here's my bigger question to both of them. Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Rick Ross, who else got caught up in that? J. Cole, anybody. What are you doing to build a relevant institution in the black community? Anybody ask me about the beef? Is Kendrick Lamar building any relevant institution for the black community? School, bank, hospital, supermarket, manufacturing, distribution. And if you don't want to do a relevant institution, what about a relevant service? Homelessness, mental health treatment without drugs, rehabilitation. Give me a service if you can't give me a relevant institution. If they're not doing that, they don't really matter to me at all. I'm all about solutions and institutions. You either come into Dr. Umar with a solution for a problem or an institution to save our people. Because the crowning embarrassment of Black America in 2024 is we are a $2 trillion people, and yet we are as dependent on Caucasians and their institutions today as we were when we got out of slavery. That is not acceptable. With the celebrities we got and the billionaires that we have and the millionaires that we have, how in the hell do we not have our own hospitals? Explain that with all the medical doctors we have. How we don't have enough independent schools for our children. Explain that with all the PhDs that we have. Explain how we don't have our own supermarkets with all the farmers and agriculturalists that we have. Look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates is the largest owner of arable farmland in America. Bill Gates. Now, we know he wants to poison the food and give that to black people as a form of genocide. We know that. Bill Gates' food has already been outlawed in different countries around the world. So we know he's up to death through the food. We know how this works. They do it in Africa all the time. We get it. But if Bill Gates, as a computer scientist, can get into building farms, why can't we do the same thing? I was at a farm conference, HBCU, Delaware State, a few months ago. Do you know what I learned there? Most of our farmers are aging out. They're getting older and they don't have the physical vitality to run them farms. And do you know what the black farmers said at the HBCU Delaware State Farming Conference? We can't find enough young black people to train. We can't find enough young black people to train to replace us. And black farmers are only 1% of all the farmers in the country as it is, brother. Are we going to continue to be dependent upon non-African people for our food source? A $2 trillion people, and you don't even have your own food source? And this is as true for poor Africans in America as it is true for wealthy Africans in America.
Shady McCoy, I know you're not really a big fan of some of the stuff he's been doing as of late.
I just didn't appreciate Shady McCoy because I liked him as an athlete, especially as a running back with the Eagles. I just didn't like the way that he kind of attacked Angel Reese and defended Caitlyn Clark recently on the show that they have. I don't think it was necessary for him to try to underscore how irrelevant Angel Reese is to the WNBA and how relevant Caitlin Clark was. He would never do that to Caitlin Clark. He would never do that to Caitlin Clark. And I'm just tired of successful black men in the mainstream, not just Shady McCoy, but Snow Bunny Shannon, Snow Bunny Barkley, LeBron, all of those guys, Stephen A. Smith occasionally. I don't like when they shame our women and gloat over white girls. I don't like that. Black women are the most unprotected women in this country. The last place they should be receiving abuse from is black men in the media. So I just want my brother Shady McCoy to check himself. It's the only time I really saw him do something that I thought was despicable for a black man. Hopefully he never does it again.
Gotta ask you, Palestine, what's the issue with that? Because I know a lot of people, man, they feeling the type of way that you didn't speak up for Palestine. Like, what's the issue with that, man?
Okay. Due to the war with Israel, or the war between Israel and Hamas, more than 100,000 Palestinians have lost their life. And I'm sorry for that loss. I don't condone death for any group. White, black, purple, green, orange. I'm an African. I believe in humanitarianism. Protect women, protect children, protect elders, and even protect the men. So what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people, has been doing to the Palestinian people, is nothing short of genocide. It's not acceptable. And that's why I took issue with both LeBron James and Floyd Mayweather for standing with Israel against the Palestinian people. That was wrong. The reason that I did not participate in any of these marches or rallies for Palestine is because there are African humanitarian crises taking place all over this world that's not getting any attention at all. We just had a whole slate of HBCU graduations interrupted by HBCU students to protest the humanitarian crisis in Palestine. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. But my question for those HBCU students would be, why are you protesting for Palestine when you have not protested for the Democratic Republic of the Congo? The largest and the longest humanitarian crisis on earth has been the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 100,000 Palestinians. How about tens of millions of Congolese dead? How about 25 million Congolese starving right now? How about America and Britain and France, who are paying gangs in the Congo to fight each other so they can run away with the mineral wealth of the richest piece of land on earth, the Congo? So my issue is not that I don't want black children standing up for other people. That's okay, but you don't stand up for another people before you stand up for yourself. Why did y'all interrupt graduation for our Congolese brothers and sisters? What about our South Sudanese brothers and sisters who are starving and dying? What about our Ethiopian brothers and sisters who are starving and dying? What about our Somali brothers and sisters who have been attacked with drone missiles from the U.S. government? Nobody's saying nothing about the U.S. attacks on Somalia. What about Haiti? What about the Haitian crisis when you got hundreds of thousands of dead Haitians, not to mention the millions that are starving and struggling in Haiti? We have too many humanitarian crisis across the African world, not to mention police brutality in America, not to mention homelessness in America, not to mention black femicide in America, miseducation, mass incarceration in America. There's African crises all over this world. And you mean to tell me that we will rally and protest and fight for another group before we fight for our own? So I'm not against them standing up for the Palestinian people. I too do not condone what Israel has done. But I will never fight for another people before I fight for my own people. African people never get the attention put on them that other races do. Congo hasn't gotten half the attention of Palestine. Haiti hasn't gotten half the attention of Palestine. Sudan and Somalia and Ethiopia haven't gotten half the attention as does Palestine. Black women in this country being raped and beat and killed hasn't gotten half the attention as Palestine. So all due respect to the Palestinian people, and I wish the best for them. But if there's to be any crying or any dying to be done by me, it's going to be done for African people.
Dr. Umar, man, great interview, man. Very insightful, man. We got to run this back again, man. Got to do it again. But before we end the interview, man, let the people know what you got going on.
Yes, indeed. We still working on the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. We want everybody to donate. Hit your Cash App, $ FDMG School. Hit your PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. Black women, I'm working on the For Sisters Only book, Relationships and Dating. There will be a For Sisters Only Relationships and Dating tour. We're going to have the grand opening for the school coming up real soon as well. We're just about done with those renovations. Please join my mailing list because I'm no longer allowed to go live on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. I'm asking everyone to join my mailing list. Go to my Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, which you can connect to through my website, drumarjohnson.com. Click on my link tree and click on mailing list. Please join the mailing list. You're going to be getting an e-blast once a month that's going to tell you about where I'm going to be, where I'm going to be speaking, my trips to Africa, Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey, tips for Black parents, relationship advice, and everything in between. So please join the mailing list. That's going to be very important. And if anybody needs to reach me directly, my phone number is public. If you need some consultation about your children, education, mental health, autism, learning disabilities, ADHD, intellectual disturbances, intellectual disabilities, speech problems, conduct disorder, IEP, psych evals, reach out to me, 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858. Brothers and sisters, keep me in your prayers. Every African for all Africans for every African. United we stand, divided we fall.